Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is the Straight No Chaser podcast, where we talk about human freedom through money, technology, economics, and philosophy. Today's episode is something new. This is going to be a monthly recap where myself, Nikolai, who is the Namibian Bitcoin guy, Herman from Bitcoin ETFs, and Ricky from Orange Global Services are going to be getting together every single month, and we are going to chat about news and headlines in the last 30 days in the Bitcoin space. Think of it pretty much like a current affairs episode. Ricky was unfortunately not able to meet us today or join us for the chat. He wasn't feeling well, but we certainly will be catching up with him next time. In the episode, we talk about Bitcoin and quantum computing, some recent headlines out of El Salvador. We chatted a little bit about Jack Dorsey's new app called BitChat, as well as some of the Bitcoin ETF concerns, redemption in kind, and things like that. So it's a great chat. Looking forward to having you guys join us. Cool. Okay. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to have you on board for this fireside chat about all things Bitcoin. Nikolai, pleasure to meet you. Herman, thanks for joining. We are missing Ricky, but hopefully we'll pick him up next time. How's it, guys? How are you doing? What's happening your side?
Oh, lekker. Cold, but good.
Yeah, it's cold, very cold where I am, but good. Yeah, not a problem.
I mean, actually, when I say it's cold, it's actually not too bad. Like, there might be some people listening that are thinking it's like minus 5 or whatever, but it's not actually that bad. It's just cold considering that we don't build houses for the cold. We build houses for the summer. So
I think that's a good point for our international audience. When we say cold here, we're actually only kidding. We still see the sun; it still shines. There's no snow.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. It's cold. It's 9 degrees where I am. It's very cold right now for August, and it's windy too. So yes, it's cold.
9 degrees is a fine summer's day in many places of the world. So don't knock 9 degrees.
That is true.
Cool, man. So it's interesting. I mean, it's always an interesting month in Bitcoin, I suppose you could say. I don't think there's actually a quiet month that goes by, whether it's bull market, bear market, or sideways market, or whatever we happen to be in. There's always something going in. I think traditionally people always said in the bear markets, you have people building and talking about stuff like that. In the bull markets, everyone's talking about price action. So, guys, where do you think we are in the cycle? 4-year cycle, or is that still a thing? Is that going to be broken this cycle? Is this time different? Nikolai, let's kick off with you. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's a bit early to call whether the 4-year cycle will be broken or not, because either way, the way it's looking, we're still on track for the halving to be the halving. What happens in the meantime with all these new entries and the Bitcoin class of 2025 that's coming in as ETFs have landed, there's a whole new ocean of stuff they need to get through to actually get to the point of why Bitcoin and real Bitcoin, as in Bitcoin you hold in self-custody, Bitcoin. And I think that's muddying the waters a bit. And at the same time, we have the node wars. So like, these new Bitcoiners are confused. There's a lot of confusion going around, and I'm not blaming them for it. But I don't think it's time to call end to the 4-year cycle just yet of how things go up and down.
Herman, what do you think about this 4-year cycle thing? Is it broken? Is this time really different?
I'd be careful to say that it is different, because I've got PTSD from 20. When was it? 20. I think it was the previous one, 2021, when that guy that's since become a bit of a Anyway, is he, Dan Held? Dan Held had the super cycle, and I've got some PTSD from listening to some of his podcasts and actually taking him serious for a moment there. So yeah, I don't know. I think probably not. But look, it's gonna happen at some point. Like at some point, whether it's this cycle or next cycle or the one after that, at some point the 4-year cycle will break. It's obviously not going to continue indefinitely. I don't think when we're in 2040 or 2050 and I become an old man, that we'll still be talking about 4-year cycles. So, but probably a little bit early to say it's broken up. But it could be like something in between as well. It's like not either or. Like you could have like a very subdued bull market and then a very subdued pullback afterwards, and it could look like a cycle to someone who's only seeing that for the first or the second time, but it could look like it's not actually a cycle to somebody who was there in 2013 when things were really wild, and 2017 where it was really wild. So yeah, I don't know. Like we'll see, I guess.
So maybe like a traditional finance guy that will be looking at a 5% drawdown and pulling his hair out and screaming like a girl and hitting the sell button.
Yeah, exactly.
No more 50% drawdowns, just maybe 5.
No.
Yeah.
So I guess the thing about the 4-year cycle is you've got this definite halving. So there is literally a line in the sand every 4 years that you can't get away from. And I think that's the beauty of the Bitcoin protocol. It just TikTok next block, off it goes, doesn't really care. But each cycle, there does seem to be an element of new energy coming in. I suppose this time around is probably the ETFs, Nikolai, that you mentioned earlier. And an interesting thing is I see some of those ETFs have applied for in-kind redemption of Bitcoin. I'm not sure if it's been approved yet, but it was you had to buy your ETF with dollars, and if you wanted to move that, you had to sell it for dollars and then receive your money and go buy Bitcoin somewhere else or do something else. Now it sounds like they can actually transfer that Bitcoin out in kind. Not sure if that's going to make a big difference. It's I think for the guys that are ETF boys, I wonder if that will be meaningful to them. Do you think it's a game changer?
Herman, you go first.
I don't know what I think about that, man. Like I'm so far removed from the ETF world and what's going on there that I don't know. Does somebody who buys an ETF, do they even care about like what if they wanted to redeem it in kind? Why would they not just go out and buy Bitcoin in the first place? Like maybe there's a small percentage of people that are gonna do that, but I mean, perhaps it's important for symbolic reasons. Like I guess it's cool that that it's possible if it gets approved. I don't know if it was approved, like you say, but I guess for symbolic reasons, it could be cool. Like if it was not possible, then it's kind of the paper nature of that Bitcoin becomes even more papery. If that makes sense.
I mean, I kind of find it weird, right? Like Herman said, why not just go out and buy the Bitcoin if you're going to buy an ETF that is going to be redeemable in Bitcoin? Now the thing is, of course, the ETFs could outperform the actual price of Bitcoin, but are you going to be able to redeem more Bitcoin, and how do you redeem it? Who gives you the Bitcoin? Where did they get the Bitcoin to hold on to that? Currently, we have OTC desks that are begging for more Bitcoin. So like it's a limited resource. We can't just indefinitely have thousands of ETFs in the world, right? Trying to have Bitcoin that is redeemable in kind. How? Where did the Bitcoin come from is what I'm going to say to that. Because it's not my Bitcoin that you can redeem. It's not going to be Herman's. So whose are you redeeming, and what is the mechanism of redemption, right? If there's a quote unquote bank run on the ETF, right? Who pays them out like immediately around the world? Like there's so many questions around this, and I'm just like, why am I not just buying Bitcoin like, and holding it myself in my self custody? I don't know. That's all I have to say on that, because it doesn't make sense to me. It's confusing.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And I think it's really like a product, a specific product for a specific market. Some guys will never be buying Bitcoin on their own. But if they can do it through an ETF and it's just part of their stock portfolio and they feel kind of trendy because they can say, hey, I've got a 1%, 2%, or 5% allocation, they might think that they're, the big swinging dick at the bar when they're having a beer with their mates because they can say that. But, even with the regular Bitcoiners, we've got guys that have Bitcoin sitting on exchanges and trying to get the message to them to get your stuff off the exchange. They look at you, they blink slowly, and then they just change the topic. Like there's this like mindset, like, what do you talk about? I have to go get some little USB stick and put it on that. And what if I lose my stick and who's looking after my words? And so I guess those ETFs are just for those sort of people that just want to have this little allocation, and they'll probably be the first to sell when things go, a bit of a drawdown. They'll flog that off quickly. Who knows? Maybe when they see they can sell at any time, 24/7, maybe they'll go, hey, hang on a second. This thing is a bit more than all the other stuff. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. Let's see where it goes.
I'm also a little skeptical. I mean, I have no concrete proof to back this up with, so it's purely speculative. But with all the hype, and it's not only the ETFs. I mean, that's been live for a while now. What's it been? It's been more than a year, definitely, right? So
yeah, I think January 24.
Yeah, so it's been like it's been a long time, especially in the Bitcoin world. That's a long time, and demand is supposed to have outpaced supply for forever. Like since the very beginning, I've been seeing how much demand there is, and it's like 10, 20 times more than what the supply is. And I don't think if you adjust for inflation that we're actually currently at an all-time high relative to where the price was before. So I don't know, like I don't, these ETFs, to me, it's just such a golden opportunity to sell paper Bitcoin that doesn't exist. That I'm like, if all that demand was real and all those ETFs are really buying as much Bitcoin as they say they're buying because they're selling shares in the ETF, and it's just this massive demand. And now you've got these Bitcoin treasury companies on top of that, but that's a different topic. But I mean, like if all this demand is real, then shouldn't the price have been like 10 times what it is right now? I don't know, like where is all this supply coming from? Because everybody seems to be buying. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I did see that there is some very, very early coins that were recently liquidated, but that also wasn't quite enough to satisfy the demand. So I don't know. I'm very skeptical. I wouldn't, let me put it this way, I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that some of these ETFs were actually selling Bitcoin that didn't exist. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And it also wouldn't surprise me if some of these Bitcoin treasury companies, who are obviously, I don't think they're doing taking self-custody. I think they're holding on exchanges. I also wouldn't be surprised if these exchanges are selling paper Bitcoin to these Bitcoin treasury companies. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because my uninformed, educated guesswork tells me that the price, looking at demand and considering that the supply is so limited, like the price should have been way higher than what it is now. Not that I really care too much about the price. I'm not complaining about it at all. I'm just saying, like,
yeah, that is. So maybe what we need there is actually for a failure, an ETF failure, a run on it, and maybe this is where the in-kind redemption will sort of stand on its own. Someone says, "Hey, man, that exchange or that ETF fund, they've fallen over. Send me my Bitcoin, please." And then people will get caught with their pants around their ankles, because this is the first time in the history of money that we have an asset that you can do that with. You can, they can't duplicate it, can't replicate it, can't print more of it to send it to you. So they will probably have to pay you in dollars if they fall over or whatever, or they can't, they don't have the Bitcoin, they've got to pay you in the dollars. They'll probably get a, Federal Reserve step in, print, back them up. They pay you the dollars. You can go, what do you do then? Do you go buy the Bitcoin? Do you give it back to the ETF, say buy some? Do we need a failure for people to sort of see, this is different?
I mean, I think the failure is going to be inevitable. One of them is going to fail, right? You're going to have an FTX or a Celsius type of a failure happen, right? It's just a matter of time because, as Herman said, there's no way that all of them have what they're saying they have, and the exchanges have, and all of the Bitcoiners around the world are buying and DCing. It just doesn't make sense that these guys have all of that, right? Maybe one or two of them have the Bitcoin and have it back somewhere, but I'm just not seeing it. It might just be a whole thing of, we're all using Coinbase, and Coinbase has the Bitcoin, and that's where everything is backed up by. We're backed by Coinbase. That's another conversation. But to say, I think we do need a failure, and I think it's inevitable that one will fail. Somebody's going to say, hey, I need my Bitcoin back right now. And it's going to be, I want to redeem Bitcoin for my ETF shares. And it's just not going to be possible. And that's where people are going to be like, whoops, let's all check all the other ETFs and find out. But it's going to have to happen that way, I think. Because it seems like people forgot about Celsius and BlockFi and, FTX. It's like almost like it got erased from short-term memory. And now they're like, oh, no, the shiny thing, let's keep going.
Yeah, that's that is such an interesting topic. Each cycle, I suppose, there's new people coming in and they don't know the history, so they have to learn that again. It kind of seems like people in general are really good at forgetting their history, and they just keep on repeat. It's I'm always amazed that there's this actual intellectual argument between like socialism and free market economies, for argument's sake. I think there have been enough examples in the history of the world that shows that the socialism, which leads to communism, has failed. And yet every flipping university has got like a communist party, and the students, want to, go on about this. And politicians seem to, politicians run the world at the moment, seem to just be pushing this socialist agenda, wealth tax, government must get bigger, this crazy stuff. So I can almost understand how the Bitcoin noobs don't know anything easily get taken for this, when frankly, very educated people, 50, 60, 70-year-old, are still pushing, socialist things. It's just, I don't know, man. Why are people so stupid? Why do we just not learn? Why can't we just pass that knowledge on and the next generation goes, okay, cool. Granddad burnt his fingers. I'm not going to do that. But each generation just wants to go and do their own thing.
I don't know why I can't answer that question.
When you find that answer, you're gonna become a billionaire. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's why do cycles repeat? Why do humans why does history rhyme even if it doesn't repeat itself? Right? It's human nature to basically just mess up, I guess. Right? Even with the answers in front of us, it's like cool. Bitcoin's there. Hey, how much is that Apple stock? It's like human nature. Like, no, I'm used to this, and I don't think it's more a thing of people are stupid. I just think it's that human beings haven't evolved in a very long time. Right? We've evolved to a certain point, and then we didn't evolve further, and we're not seeing how we can evolve further. So we just keep repeating the old lessons in new ways.
I've got a bit of a theory about that. I think that technical knowledge can be passed down in books and taught in universities, and we can learn how to build things better, how to build a better bridge, how to build a better car, how to build a better engine. But human experience cannot be written down in a book and transferred from generation to generation. We all grow up. We all have to ask the first girl out on a date. You got to kiss the girl the first time. There's all these first experiences. The first time you get behind a car and drive, your first job, buying your first, whatever. You simply cannot transfer that experience from one person to another. And we all know that nobody makes logical decisions. Everybody makes an emotional decision. And the prime example is that Ferrari continues to sell cars, and so does Toyota. Now, if they both sell cars and a car gets you from A to B, logically, no one should be buying Ferraris, but there's an emotional component, and I think that's what it is. People look at this thing, it tugs at the heartstrings. It's the feel-good factor, and there they go, throw all their money into it.
That's a very good point, actually. I think you hit the nail on the head there. People are not at the end of the day, people are not logical and rational creatures. We're for the most part, we are ruled by our emotions, and that's why these things keep happening over and over again. I mean, I can't really say who without embarrassing somebody, but I had a one-on-one conversation with somebody who works for a company who's now becoming one of these Bitcoin treasury companies. And I don't think this person has been in Bitcoin for longer than 6 months. Doesn't sound like it anyway. But it reminded me so much of the hype that surrounded some of these ICO projects in 2017, where it was just, well, this is the next big thing, and I think it's becoming more. How can I put it? I mean, like, look, my private business has been a Bitcoin treasury company since, I don't know, 2015, dude. Like, I've had Bitcoin on my balance sheet. Like, the reason COVID didn't kill our tourism business was because we're a Bitcoin treasury company. If we were not a Bitcoin treasury company, COVID would have killed our tourism business. We couldn't operate for 2 years. There are other tourism businesses where we now employ people who used to own tourism businesses that were bigger than ours, but they were not Bitcoin treasury companies. We were. So, but now all of a sudden, and I don't know how this works, but obviously it's just become like this new hype cycle, and this is what the whole emotional argument that you were alluding to is. It's like it's people for. Yeah, I mean, for all our appearances of rationality and logic and so on and so forth, I think people are just basically, emotional creatures, and nobody likes to admit that, but it's obvious if you look at what happens. Like, why would people keep repeating themselves? Why would everybody? I mean, I can't say for sure, but after this conversation, I was 99.9% sure that this person is trying to sell me on hype, because it smelled, and it smelled exactly the same as some of this shit that our people were trying to sell me during 2017, where this was going to do that and that was going to do that, and it's just, I guess it comes down to that. We're not actually very logical or rational at all.
Yeah. So along the lines of something sort of, maybe hype, maybe this, maybe it's not what it's cracked up to be. I see El Salvador's popped up in the news a little bit recently, where some questions are being asked there. And I only mention El Salvador because, from a Bitcoin point of view, they were the first nation to go legal tender adoption of Bitcoin. And then, as you know, the World Bank or something, or IMF loaned them some money on condition that they move away from this Bitcoin thing. But there's a couple of recent, in the last month, I saw two news headline items. One is, looks like there's a little bit of a crackdown on journalism happening in El Salvador, and President Bukele's had term extensions approved through parliament or something. So I think they're pushing for 6-year terms now, and then indefinite term rates, which sounds, Banana Republic, here we come. Who knows? And then there was also something about the 1 Bitcoin a day, which was almost like a meme. Suddenly they got this loan, and then they were supposed to not be buying Bitcoin anymore as one of the conditions of the loan. And then the president actually tweeted, well, we still, he would sort of subtly hint with tweets that they're still continuing to buy 1 Bitcoin a day. Now it sounds like they might have just been moving it from one wallet to another, and it might be a bit weird. And it's kind of interesting because it was this almost like shining beacon of hope in the Bitcoin space as far as nation state adoption goes. And now it looks like it might not be quite as bright as it was. Time will tell, and who knows what the real story is. But what are your thoughts there, guys?
Okay,
we move along quickly.
Please, Herman, I haven't been to El Salvador, so I can't speak of on the ground. Herman's been.
I mean, look, I think first of all, the first thing to say is that anybody that is disappointed should have should take a long hard look in the mirror, because from day one you should have reminded yourself that, hey, this is all fantastic, but these are people in positions of power, and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So why did that all of a sudden change when a president came out? And I mean, maybe he's fantastic, maybe he was fantastic, maybe something changed, he made some good decisions. Is he going to make some bad decisions? 100% guaranteed. Could he turn into a dictator? Yeah, it's possible. Is he a dictator right now? No, obviously not yet. If it's going to happen, it's still in the future. Real dictatorships look very different. Unless things drastically change in the last 6 months. I was there for 6 weeks in November, December. So unless things drastically changed in the last 6 months on the ground, I did not visit a dictatorship. Maybe slight authoritarian tendencies, yeah, for sure. Could that become worse? Of course. But it's kind of like, I mean, I actually think there's a much better example of this, and that's the American president. People put so much hope and faith in Donald Trump during the election. And when he was almost assassinated, even I started thinking to myself, holy shit, this guy is the real deal. Like, look at what, look at that. And I was like, and then, you listen to influencers and they're all just, singing his praises, and you almost want, because again, we're this emotional creatures, and we have to have hope. It's just that we place our hope in the wrong places. But human beings can't survive without hope. You can survive 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and 3 seconds without hope. But the problem is that we place our hope in the wrong places, and we put them, and perhaps that's a psyop. Perhaps we've been conditioned to place our hope in these individuals who occupy these positions of power. I don't know. Perhaps that's a natural tendency. I mean, humans have always lived in tribes, and the tribe has always had a strong leader. But then we put our hope in these individuals, and I mean, look at what's happened since Trump became president. Like, he was supposed to be the anti-war president, and he he flew B-2 bombers over another country and bombed them to shit. He was supposed to be the guy that's going to drain the swamp, and now we're told that the Epstein thing is supposed to be nothing. I mean, come on, like that's the biggest monster in the swamp, one of them, and we're supposed to just go, oh, okay, well, I guess, so it's another cycle that keeps repeating itself. Leaders come and they do something, and people put hope in them, and then they fuck up. It's like, well, what did you expect? And we're all probably guilty of that to some extent. I got drawn into the whole Bukele as the beacon of hope thing. But at the end of the day, he's just a human being, and he's probably getting a little power hungry, and hopefully things turn out for the better. I don't know. I don't think it's currently a dictatorship. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a crackdown on journalism, because every fucking country in the world does that. South Africa cracks down on journalists, man. Like America cracks down on journalists. So yeah, I'm not super surprised by it. I just, from the very beginning, would have cautioned against putting hope and faith into any person in a position of centralized power, so that you avoid being disappointed when it turns out that, hey, this guy is just another politician, and maybe he's a bit better, maybe he's a bit worse, but it's a structural problem. Like, it's going to keep happening until we don't have these structures.
Yeah, fully agree with what Herman's saying, in the fact that Bitcoiners were supposed to be like, rules, no rulers. But now, literally, in the last year, what I've seen is Bitcoiners completely be like, "Oh, I want my favorite politician to be the politician." It's like, bro, what happened to no rulers? Like, weren't we here for like something else? And it literally, I don't even engage as much as I used to on Twitter anymore because I'm like, what are you guys doing? This wasn't what I signed up for, or like what I signed up for. Now I'm just talking to the tech guys. I'm doing the dev guys, all that, because everybody else is just inundated with the new shiny thing and the new politician. And like, I'm like, guys, like, why are you guys against Trump? You know who this guy was, like, as a president. It's not his first presidency, it's his second presidency, right? So it's not like we should all be shocked about politicians being politicians. We 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 need to do better, and I agree with Herman. We need to do better in what we place our trust in. We now have seen placing hope in individuals. They will, because they are human beings. At some point, and they're not you, right? They are going to disappoint you. Your parents have disappointed you at some point. Your children have disappointed. Your spouse has disappointed you. Everybody will disappoint you at some point because they're human beings. So trying to make them godlike is going to be a bad idea. That's why Satoshi left. He was like, nope, I'm not doing this. Right? So I really do think it's down to us as individuals to understand that El Salvador is a country that made a decision on what to do with Bitcoin. I actually think everybody should be talking about Bhutan, the country that nobody knew was mining Bitcoin, but was secretly mining Bitcoin, right? And now he's building an airport, paying their what do you call the people that work in government again?
Civil servants.
Public servants, the civil servants, they're getting paid off of the Bitcoin that was mined. Like, this is going straight back into the community in a way that actually can be measured, right? But all everybody wants to talk about is El Salvador. And El Salvador is great. Again, it's a country that made a really bold decision, but so did Bhutan. They said, you know what, we're not even going to tell you guys. We're just going to start it. We're going to go ahead and do what the Bitcoiners said we could do. Apparently, you can just do stuff. So they did it. And I think that is where we should just start focusing our attention, not on, is this guy a dictator? If they keep voting him in, I'm sorry, what are we supposed to do? Right? If you keep voting somebody into power, that is a democratic process that you're going through, and you keep voting him in. Hey, man, look, we're here. We also have our own problems. We also have our own governments. We also, but at the same time, there are places that we can talk about and maybe go visit and say, hey, Bhutan, what's actually going on here? Like, how are you guys doing your mining? What like software are you guys using, right? Which miners are you? Nobody's having this conversation on Bitcoin Twitter at all. And that's what I find weird.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to wrap up what you're saying there. So, El Salvador is like the firstborn child. Everyone has high hopes in them. Bhutan is like the middle child everyone ignores and should be paying maybe more attention to the middle child there, not the firstborn.
So there we go. Sorry, just one last thing on that. I also don't really understand people who are so overly critical of Bukele and what's happening in El Salvador, because at the end of the day, you can, two things can be true at the same time, and I don't understand why people don't see that. Like, he's made some good decisions, and he's probably fucked up in a few different ways too. So, and that's pretty much par for the course. I mean, you can maybe look at some really inspirational leaders, and perhaps they fucked up less than the rest. And then you can look at some really bad leaders, and maybe they messed up most of the time and did hardly any good. But at the end of the day, any leader would do both. It's the same. I've become so frustrated listening to politics, political debates where people fall in either one of two camps, and everything this person does is either good or bad. And you've got the people who start calling a guy like Trump a dictator, authoritarian, and now I see people doing the same thing with Bukele. Oh, he's a dictator. He's this. He's like, well, no, obviously he's not a dictator. He could become a real dictator. It's possible. He's done some good things. I mean, every single person I spoke to in El Salvador was happy with the way the country was turned around in terms of the gang problem, and that was very, very clearly a result of some very tough decisions that he made, and made some enemies along the way outside the country, made some friends outside the country as well. But every single person in the country was very, very appreciative of that. And so clearly there's some good things that he's done. And I will, nobody should be surprised if there's some bad things. Like in 2 years from now, maybe he does become, I don't know when their next election is. I think a couple of years from now. But because I used to have 4-year terms and he got re-elected, 2 years ago? I think something.
And now it's like 5 years.
5 years. So let's say in 3 or 4 years from now he gets re-elected again, and then he gets re-elected again.
Yeah.
And then he starts putting journalists in prison. I don't know, that could happen, but are you going to be surprised if it happens? No, because that's kind of how the story goes, isn't it? So let's not call the guy a dictator prematurely, because what does that say about actual fucking dictators? Like there are real dictators in the world that are way, 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 way worse than what Bukele is. Bukele is a figure who's done some actual good. I mean, there was the amount of construction that was going on in El Salvador reminded me of the Western Cape in South Africa when I was there. It's just like roads being built everywhere, new buildings going up, and that can't be a horrible thing. Like, I mean, if there's development going on and there's economic development, then people are going to benefit one way or another. So it's not perfect, but it's also not all bad, I don't think. Yeah.
Well said.
Cool.
Well said.
Yeah. So quick change in direction, a little bit techie stuff. The Bitcoin quantum computing. I see that sort of popped its head up recently again. I listened to a podcast recently, and the guy was talking about some IBM machine that has managed to crack a 5-bit encryption code. And on the surface, it sounded kind of quite impressive. Then they broke it down, and a 5-bit, he said, do you know how difficult a 5-bit encryption is? And well, clearly I didn't know. I was just listening to the conversation. And he said it's 32 possible combinations. That's it. It took this quantum computer 16,000 attempts to correctly guess a maximum of 32 combinations, and it came up with it did find the correct answer, but it took 16,000 attempts and it could have just gone for 32. Yeah, 5-bit is a 32 combination thing, so it could have just gone for 32 different attempts and would have found it in probably 2 seconds flat. So kind of that was a little bit interesting. Like, you get this hype news event, possibly a little bit like what we were talking about with El Salvador, news headline designed to get your emotions stirred, because we all make emotional decisions. But at the end of the day, doesn't really seem to be a great step forward for mankind. Is this thing going to go away? Are we going to keep hearing about quantum for 20 years until some guy decides to give up with it? Or is this going to become, like the early mainframe computers that took up 4 buildings and it could do 1 + 1 in the 50s, and now they're in our pocket? What do you guys think?
The quantum computing conversation's never going away. And I think at some point it will be a problem. At some point in the future, it will be a problem. But Bitcoin is not the first one that's going to have to run for the hills. It will be the entire financial system as it exactly exists today, right? Everybody's going to go for that first. Like, I'm coming for all of the passwords on every ATM card, and it's literally, that's what people will go for. All of the hackers in the world, they'll first go for that. That's the honeypot. Then the Bitcoiners. But now here's the kicker. Whenever something happens in technology, what normally happens? Like, Lightning Network wasn't created by Bitcoiners. It was on Litecoin, right? But the technology itself was adopted by Bitcoiners. So when new technology comes out, Bitcoin literally adopts it. It swallows it up. And then, so we'll just have quantum resistant addresses at that point in time. Now, the Bitcoin that's already out there, what's going to happen to it? Will those be hacked? Probably, maybe. I mean, they're in very old scripts. I mean, you can't upgrade that right now. Or how would you upgrade that? Maybe somebody would find a way, but then you still have to get access to the keys and all. But you'd have to move the coins over. But how would you do that? Some of these people died with no heirs. That guy that lost the 8,000 Bitcoin on the trash heap that just gave up yesterday, I mean, That 8,000, what's going to happen there? Like, so the whole question here is, firstly, everybody that's alive will upgrade to the new quantum resistant Bitcoin wallets, right? That's what's going to happen, and move their coins immediately. So you won't be able to hack everybody's. But those that are leaving it there, those that are dead, okay, cool. That's now going to be bounties. And people are going to start learning how to get there, which for me means Bitcoin will become more resilient, right? The people that are working on Bitcoin, that are working on maintaining the actual network and the infrastructures, will then build more resilient because they now know how to crack the old way with these new technologies. But again, when will the individual people have access to quantum computers? That's the next question, right? Same way that the internet was in existence, but the greater humanity didn't have it until what, 97, 95 or something. Well, like, same thing. Even if quantum computers come out, we're not going to get them in laptop form for a very long time that we can try to go and, I think people are, second thing is, it's also a psyop. Oh, don't self-custody, because like when quantum computers come in, it's going to be like really dangerous. You should leave it. All of this is just weird to me. Technology advances and human beings take that new advancement into account. Same way everybody is using LLM in different things in their apps and they're integrating it. It's technology moving forward. And we're going to employ it. I mean, yeah, people still ride horses, but it's not because they're trying to move from A to B most of the time, right? There's cars, there's a bus, there's a taxi, there's other ways to get from point A to B now that will cut your time down and you don't have to feed the horse. You take care of it.
I've got a question actually. I wonder if with quantum computing, when let's say that guy who gave up on his 8,000 Bitcoin that's now somewhere in a trash heap, if hypothetically speaking, there is somebody who has access to a quantum computer that could start hacking public addresses and breaking the cryptography, then I'm pretty sure that somebody would know. So, that's my question: is would somebody know? Somebody that's watching the mempool, for example, would they be able to tell that Bitcoin has been hacked? And now, I mean, I don't know how to phrase this because my technical knowledge is a little limited. But basically, what I'm asking is, wouldn't it just turn into a situation where all the Bitcoin that gets hacked simply ends up with miners and mining fees? Because if one person was able to hack that, surely there's another person who's able to do something very similar at more or less the same time, and he's trying to send the same Bitcoin to a different address, and then somebody else is going to come in, and so they end up they basically end up outbidding themselves in a war of who pays the highest fee to get that Bitcoin onto an address that they control. And so by the time the Bitcoin gets mined in the next block, there's nothing left. They've basically fee sniped each other to the point where what they've hacked is a small fraction. There's only a small fraction of it left. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying. I don't know if that's possible. Okay. So yeah, that's what we might need somebody way more technical than any of us to answer how this would actually, in theory, go down. Like how would it? Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's an interesting question.
I mean, if you've got a quantum computer and you can hack the old, or you can basically break the encryption on the old addresses. You'd have a copy of the blockchain. You can just go all the way back to the beginning, Genesis block, start trawling through, looking for addresses that still have the old non-quantum resistant address type. And you just break the encryption on there. And now you just move that Bitcoin into another address that you control. So is this almost not a good thing? Would we, because all the Bitcoiners that are alive, when they see this quantum computing bullet flying towards them, they just sidestep their Bitcoin into a new address that's quantum resistant, and they carry on as normal. Maybe the old Bitcoins, the lost Bitcoin, will actually now be recoverable and go back into circulation, Is that even possible?
I mean, I don't.
It should be possible, but if I mean, what's the most likely scenario? I think the most likely scenario is that there is an upgrade to Bitcoin, and that everybody who does own Bitcoin moves their Bitcoin to quantum resistant addresses, and then those that don't move, you can safely assume that the people who used to own those private keys, either the keys are lost or the person is dead. And if we move to a quantum resistant address format long before quantum computers become a real threat, by the time they do become a real threat, it's going to be very obvious if that happens, right? And so I just don't understand, and this is basically the question I was asking earlier. I just don't understand this idea of, okay, so there's one person or one actor with a quantum computer, and they're the only ones that are able to do this. Like, surely if that time comes, there's going to be multiple actors all trying to do this at the same time. And if quantum computers are such a massive threat, how is one of them going to stay ahead of the rest? Like, I just don't. How is this one person or this one actor, unless it's like a massive state entity, like the NSA or something like that, then okay, fair enough. I can understand how they could have access to machines that nobody else has access to. But with the way that private companies, or not private, but with the way that companies like Google, that are not under the control of a single state, or Meta or whatever, like these companies are just as likely to develop, or IBM or whatever, they're just as likely to develop quantum computing before state departments do. So how do we end up in a place where there's only one actor that are trawling the blockchain looking for old addresses, and they start hacking these things? Surely there's going to be almost like an explosion of them all at the same time. And then if you can hack a quantum, if you can hack a Bitcoin address, then I just don't see how that actor is going to move that Bitcoin to their own new address quick enough so that somebody else doesn't come up with a clever scheme to intercept that and actually try and do that, and then somebody else comes in front of them, and it just I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the AI race, right? It's like the AI race right now. Like, everybody has an AI chatbot, AI agent, AI something. Like, it's not one person like, oh, okay, I figured out AI. There's Grok, there's Gemini, there's so many different. So again, when it happens, it's like technology. Again, it's I almost look at creativity and things like this, right? Like an ether. Think of an ether that just sits in like the sky. And when you pull an idea or a creative thought from there, somebody else is also pulling from that same ether. The question is, who executes first? That's it, right? And that's why sometimes you're like, hey, I came up with this idea, but I saw somebody else did it. Where did they read about it? Like, how did they? No, dude, the idea was up there. How you wanted to implement it is what makes it, unique and whatnot. But we can all come up with the idea that creativity isn't a limited resource. It's up there. We could all draw from it. But the same thing goes for me when it comes to like my sight on like how people, when technology is there, when people figure it out, everybody pulls from it and creates from there, right? So there is no, I don't want to say there's no first mover advantage, but there's no sustainable first mover advantage when everybody can do the same thing. It's like why when Bitcoin was released as free and open source software, everybody could make a coin, right? That's what crypto is. Banks are, we get to print money. Bitcoin is, nobody gets to print money. And crypto is, everybody gets to print money. And that's literally what happens with most tech is crypto. Everybody gets to do it. And that's the fun part. So yeah, I agree with Herman completely. I don't see how this becomes a real problem beyond everybody going for the bounties. Like, hey man, even little kids are going to be like, those legacy addresses that start with 1. That's where we're going to start learning how to hack. And then you move up the chain till you get to BC1, right? And then after that, the new ones. So, it will be an interesting time to be alive. That much I can tell you.
Super cool, man. Guys, we're getting close to time here. Any last comments or thoughts? One thing I just made a note of was the new BitChat app from Jack Dorsey. Kind of interesting. Seems to run on MeshNet and Bluetooth, and it just looks like another step in privacy, freedom, sovereignty. I haven't tried it. It's not available in the Google App Store. I haven't tried it. Have any of you guys used it? Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
I downloaded it. I haven't
Herman?
used it.
Download it on your wife's phone too, so you can use it, bro.
that was my plan.
Yeah, no, I got the bug for BitChat or bitch ads, whichever way you want to see it. It's like such a weird way to phrase that thing. But yeah, no, man, I think it's amazing. I don't think people understand the real use cases that can come from this, and I'll give you a quick one. Disaster, when there's a disaster, literally, right? If there's flooding or whatever, to be able to tell people, hey, I am stuck on the 5th floor in the elevator. You can now do that because you don't have internet access, but you have Bluetooth. And as long as there's a repeater, and that's where the real money is going to come. Who creates the best Bluetooth repeaters to carry on these BitChat messages, right? With real range. Because if you can do a whole town, you've now made sure there's a secondary communication layer for things like getting to the hospital, getting like sorry, not hospital, getting what's the things? But like the vans and stuff. I can't remember the name, like the ER vans. Getting them actually to the people that need them, because ambulances, there we go, that's the name. I don't know how I couldn't get that word, but like some people literally, like there's an emergency, they don't have any money, they don't have airtime, what. They could still get the ambulance to come out and save this person's life. You can still get the police there. You can still get whatever like real help you need, because this exists and it doesn't cost you any money to send a message, right? That is amazing. That is just like the thought of even people in villages, where you just have Bluetooth, you don't have internet access. But now you can literally have people communicating and sharing information, right? Because that's what is real oil, is information. That's crazy. That's for free. It's wild, guys. But disaster relief, especially, I think is going to be amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Talking in airplanes.
I was lucky enough to be at a presentation in the US when just after those floods in North Carolina happened. This was about 6 months ago, maybe a bit longer, 8-9 months. And the guys that went in there, members of the public that were like first responders, went in, and a lot of these guys are ex-military guys, so they understand how to move into an area, cordon off, set up communication, start organizing resources. And they would go in, and the first thing they did was start putting up those little mesh-tastic devices. They dotted them all over the countryside, and they were able to get text messages in and out. And when the official aid guys rocked up, they could actually tell them, we've got these people here, those people over there, we've got food moving in this area. And that was amazing. Just cool to hear how that whole thing would work. Do you think we'll see Wi-Fi routers suddenly incorporating MeshNet and Bluetooth as part of the router? And then, as people buy new routers, you just automatically have this rollout of tech? Because it almost seems like a cell phone. Cell phones had these NFC chips in them for years before anybody actually started using NFC. So maybe it's something like that. Like they can start pushing stuff in and start switching on down the line when it becomes viable.
It's a great idea, Gavin. I think that's a good push to have. I think you should start that conversation on Twitter almost immediately, so that people that are working on routers can start thinking, hey, man, there's other use cases here that we might have forgotten about. Bluetooth isn't as old as we thought.
I'll tell you what, I'll do the tweet, you repost like, everyone repost like, and get the message out.
There's another side to this conversation, which is that this is all fantastic, but how bad are things going to have to become for the average person to even care about the fact that this exists? I'm obsessed with Bitcoin, and I love Bitcoin adjacent technologies like Nostr and so on. I haven't even gotten to the point where I've put the app on my wife's phone so that I can try it out from my phone to hers. So for the average person to even care about the fact that this exists, things are going to have to. I mean, disaster situations might be the exception where it gets used in a particular location for a short period of time. But for there to be wide adoption of these types of things, I don't want to end the conversation on a dark note, but it always feels to be like, there's I had my VPN location on the Netherlands the other day, and I opened a random tweet, and I saw, hey, shit, I've got to verify my age here to look at somebody spending sats in Kenya, and I what the fuck is this? And so there's actual censorship of some kind. It's not super extreme, but it's some kind of a censorship happening in Europe, where now all of a sudden you have to verify your age just to look at like regular tweets. It's not even like it's adult content or anything. It's just like it's a guy spending sats in Kenya. Like, what's so hectic about that? But and people just go along with it, and it's like so at what point does this technology become not just a niche thing that people like us care about, but actually something useful for a vast number of people? I don't want to think about how bad things have to become for it to actually become widely adopted.
So I'm going to throw a positive spin in there so we don't end on a negative note. And my positive spin is this might be like the next VoIP, where we all had perfectly working landlines, and then some smart oak came up with a cell phone, and we all had cell phones, and we were paying per call, then it was per minute, then it was per second, and then someone came up with VoIP, and in fact, most people didn't even know what VoIP was, and then suddenly WhatsApp puts it in their app, and now you can phone someone free of charge, just using a Wi-Fi connection. So I think that this BitChat idea, MeshNet Bluetooth thing, might just be the next evolutionary hop, where suddenly your phones can just communicate with each other. You can make phone calls, send video, and that sort of thing. And now it's like really free. It's not even per second billing anymore, or you don't need to have paid for a Wi-Fi connection point. So I would like to think that might be the next view, the next evolution in it. And maybe it takes 15, 20 years to get there. Who knows? But and maybe it doesn't go anywhere. That's the beauty of technology. Lots of shite. I almost said shite. I did say shite. Sorry. Lots of shiny bright things out there. And some of them turn out to be shite. I'll just clear my thought like that.
Correct.
Cool,
Correct.
man. Parting thoughts before we wrap up. Herman, from your side.
I mean, I don't know. It's fun doing this. Look forward to the next one.
Nikolai.
For sure, it was fun. My parting thought is, remember that technology is just a tool. What you do with it is what matters. Just like a hammer, you can build something or you can destroy something. What you do with it is what matters.
That is awesome. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. This has been amazing. I think we covered 2 topics, or maybe 3. Well, it doesn't matter. Fun was had and everyone was smiling. That's all that matters. Cool, guys.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Have a good one. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Have a good one, gentlemen.